Well, hello, everybody. I'm Russell Hill, your host today of WTF. Yeah, no, it's not what you think. It's what the fixed ops. I'm joined today by.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charity Dunning. I am the co host here today, and we're really happy, excited. We've been waiting a long time for this episode with Dan Shine. He's our senior editor at Automotive News. Dan, welcome to the show.
It's a dream of a lifetime. Great to be with you.
Welcome. That was the right response. No, I loved it. So, Charity and I were, I think I remember this right. When we were first getting started, January 7th, this next, Monday or whatever, that's when we rolled out our first product. That's when we actually hit the market in 2020. So we'll be celebrating the end of our fourth year. And I remember early on that one of the first people we talked to or mentioned anything about our company was you, Dan.
Yeah.
In Automotive News. And since then, there's been, many people that you've talked to or interviewed or that you wrote about, and you plugged us, Charity, myself, our company, and we just wanted to say thank you very much.
I'm still waiting for the checks that come in the
Oh,
mail.
yeah.
Did I give you the address for
To
that?
talk to Russell about that.
Okay. You can buy me a beer at NADA and we'll call it even.
Yes. Well, I look forward. Have we met in person at a prior NADA?
Well,
Yes.
I've met Charity. You were busy at NADA last year, yakking it up on your podcast, and so I had to scoot, and so we never had the pleasure. But this year, I'll make a point of it.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I would say that anyone who's in this business is and paying attention knows who you are. So we always have guests introduce themselves. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us something that we may not know about you.
Boy. I have many things you don't know about me. Here's a fun fact. I once
be careful what you put out there, Dan.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple of quick fun facts. One was I helped cover a story that turned into a Pearl Jam song.
Oh, cool.
Called Jeremy. But it's a sad story because a kid killed himself in a classroom in Dallas, and I was a reporter working in Dallas at the time, and I helped cover that story, and they wrote a song about it later. And when I was a young boy, we hosted a member of the royal family at our house for brunch one Sunday many years ago.
Wow.
I was like 10 years old or something. It was Lord Snowdon, who was married at the time to one of those, either Princess Anne or Princess Margaret. I can't remember. I don't know my royal family.
They're all Anne and Margaret, right?
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Yeah. But we had a good old time with the Lord.
Wow.
Those are two awesome tidbits. They really are. And I bet all of you out there didn't know that either. So
not many do.
Yeah. So do you normally rub shoulders with elites, Dan? Is that normally your go-to?
I try not to. In fact, no. Lord Snowden was an amateur kind of photographer and kind of fancied himself as kind of a, more of a commoner than royalty. And he came to Detroit in the 70s with the Times of London to do a story on, like a lot of people did at the time, the downturn of Detroit and this. All these old great buildings that are now falling into shambles. And so he reached out to my father, who was a newspaper editor in Detroit, about places to go, people to talk to. And so my father, said, "Oh, hey, we're throwing a brunch on Sunday. You ought to come," which they weren't, but we were going to throw a brunch if he was going to come. So he says, "Sure, I'd love to." And so he showed up, and we invited some people from the British consulate. And the funny part of the story is that my grandmother was from Ireland. My grandparents were both from Ireland. We're not fans of the British royal family or of the British at all because of certain things that happened in Ireland under the British rule.
Yes.
And so my father made sure that my grandmother wasn't there because he thought this would not be a good mix. But my grandmother was coming to dinner that night. And this brunch went on for several hours because Lord Snowden didn't leave. And so nobody left either, So my grandmother showed up and she's like, "Well, look at this." And she starts, making these little jabs at the royal family. And so she said, And she said, well, I'll raise a toast to the queen. And everyone like said, oh, to the queen. And my grandmother said, upper kilt. And
Oh no! Are you?
yeah.
Wow.
And everyone, people were aghast, but Lord Snowden thought it was hilarious and laughed. And before he left, he gave my grandmother his number at Kensington Palace and said, when you come to England next time, because her sisters all lived in England, he said, come and see me at the palace. And she's like, what happens if I call and Princess, Margaret answers? And he said, well, just try to play it off like we don't know each other. So my grandmother never did. She's like, it's over in Detroit, it was making fun of the royals is okay, but in London, it's not as well.
Mhm.
It's frowned upon there. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she? So she never went, did she?
no, she went. She
Okay.
went back to London, but she didn't go hang out at the Kensington Palace with the Lord.
Well, it seems to me, I had an early career in journalism too, and we met a few people on the show that they're in radio or something like that. And in those circles, you tend to meet a lot of people that maybe are famous or, well known in the community in some way. So who are some of the people that stand out to you as throughout your career?
Oh, I'm trying to think now. So I've met President Clinton back in the day. Uh, George W. Bush was back when I was working in Dallas. He was, basically running a baseball team
Yep.
and trying to build a new stadium. So, we talked to him a lot and just would call him up and very friendly guy, fun guy. Um, and then, when I worked in Dallas, I got to, cover, I was a news writer. I covered, courts and the crime and, fires and all sorts of, mayhem. But I was a big sports lover, so I got to cover some sports. I would meet, different athletes and, the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls back in that time. And so I got to meet a lot of the Cowboys and wrote a lot of stories about them. So just, you meet people. My father was in the newspaper business for 45 years. And, I think he, at some one point, like shook the hand of every president from like Eisenhower, through Nixon or whatever, but he always like my grandmother, again, getting back to my grandmother, one time he was going to a black tie event and, and she said, oh, tell Mr. Ford that I said hello. And like, she basically was like, I know where you come from. You come from, the east side of Detroit and you're not, rubbing elbows with these rich folks, those aren't your people. So, I, I just kind of would say, oh, these people are nice, or these people are not nice. And I would just kind of move on and go back to my beer drinking friends instead.
Your grandma sounds like a sassy lady.
Yeah.
So, I'll put a plug in. My father actually wrote a book about her immigrant experience from, coming from Ireland to the United States, aged 18, all by herself. And the woman who was her sponsor from her hometown, they didn't know at the time, but she went to Duluth where this woman lived, and the woman ran a brothel. And so my grandmother had no idea. She showed up, and this woman ran a brothel in Duluth, and my grandmother said if I had the money, I would have turned around and gone right back to Ireland, but I didn't have any money, so she went to work. And yeah, she was a character. She was absolutely. I still run into friends who she used to babysit for, in around the Detroit area and stuff, and she was a great baker of chocolate chip cookies and stuff. And they had all these stories. She was a crazy. And so my father wrote a book called Life with May, about her, and just she was a character. And
Wow.
yeah.
So she did the whole Ellis Island and all that stuff, or
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yep. She was
What a rich history.
she was secretly engaged to a Protestant boy, which was frowned upon because she was Catholic. But she took her ring off on the boat over because she figured, well, you didn't want to like interfere with maybe meeting some other boys on the trip over. So
Oh, of course, right.
yeah. But she
I
she
mean,
was
she
great.
was 18 after all, so
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't bore you with all stories of my grandmother, but she was a housekeeper. That's what, she was the youngest. I mean, I'm sorry, she was the oldest of 12. And when she came down one day for school in like seventh grade, her mother said, no more school for you. I need you, helping out at home. I got too many, kids to take care of. And she was, went to work as a housekeeper, for a rich family in Ireland. And that's why she left. She's like, all I can see is my life, backing out of rooms, bowing to, the lady of the house and, serving tea and all that kind of, she's like, that's not a future for me. So she left. But she for some reason got it hooked up as a housekeeper for Jewish families. And she didn't know such a thing. She thought everybody in the world was Christian or was Catholic.
Yeah.
And so she never heard of Judaism. So she eventually made her way to Detroit and was a housekeeper and a babysitter for a Jewish family. And she took the kids out and they bought a Christmas tree and then set it back up at home.
Uh-oh.
So when the parents came home, the father said he drove by the house. He said, well, that can't be, it looks like our house, but it can't be because there's a Christmas tree in the front window. And they came home and the kids were all excited and stuff. And they had to pull my grandmother aside and say, we don't celebrate Christmas in this house. And she's like, why not?
What?
So, yeah, exactly. So,
But it's fun.
yeah, right. So anyway.
Wow.
But yeah.
What a lot of rich history, though.
Yep. Yeah.
And over those years with all the people you met or the ones that your father met, etc., have you collected a lot of like memorabilia and things that maybe weren't really significant at the time and then are very significant today?
Well, it's funny you say that because my father passed away in 2007 and he was a Depression era kid. So he saved everything and it would drive my mother crazy that there was just this house full of stuff.
Mhm.
And he taught, he was an adjunct professor, as well as working. And so for the last 25, 26 years, I've been doing that as well. I teach at local universities and colleges around Michigan. And so my mother would say, why don't you throw out this box of teaching material? Well, Dan might teach media ethics one day, which I do now. And so like I have like this box of stuff. But when he passed away, the library at the University of Michigan said, we want your father's papers. Like, well, collect them and put them all in, and I said, well, I want to go through them first. And here we are 16 years later, and they're in my attic in my house, and I haven't really gone through them
Oh my
yet.
God.
But I do like he's like, so the day that Kennedy was assassinated, the Detroit Free Press where he worked was morning paper. So they have the old Associated Press and the UPI machines that would, chatter out, with the clattering of the type, they would send out all the stories. But since they were morning paper, they weren't really concerned about anything until the latest story they could have. So, but all day long, there's reams of paper. They would print out all the updates to the assassination story. My father, at the end of the day, was probably midnight or 1 a.m, took the whole stack of printouts from this
Oh
UPI
my.
machine, put it in a box, and it's sitting in my attic.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
like, so I'm like, probably somebody would want that, but it's like, from, and I have a framed portion of it, and I have it old. Of course, my father, like when they got away from the old teletype machines and they went to computers, my father stole one of the UPI machines, and so it's in my house now, and I have a
I'll
frame.
be darned.
The first clips of where shots were fired in the motorcade, President rushed to Parkland Hospital. But the rest of it's all in this big box of stuff. So
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
there's all sorts of, I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff up there that
No, that's cool. I remember I was 3 years old and I don't remember too much until I was really 4 probably. But what I remember about this was, of course, then we had all those channels back then, ABC, NBC, and CBS, right?
Yeah.
And we had a black and white TV. We lived in California, Sacramento. And, President Kennedy was shot. And I just remember I didn't really understand what was going on, obviously, but I understood that I've never seen my mom and dad crying like that.
Yeah.
That was pretty powerful back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Didn't he win as the most popular election ever by popular vote? I think there's only one other president that won that way, which was Trump. Am I right with that?
No.
Okay.
Okay,
No.
well,
I know that. I know
Damn
that.
Shine calling Charity out. There you go.
Well, I mean, something about him that made him like everybody loved him, basically.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
in polls after the fact, he's often named as one of the people's favorite presidents.
Yeah.
But he won. I think he won the popular vote, but not if he did not by much. It was a very close election, and there was, I think, I think whoever he was, I should know, he was running against Nixon and was Nixon and Eisenhower. I don't know.
I definitely don't know that.
It was, there was some kind of shenanigans with some of the unions and the Teamsters rigging the votes for
No,
Kennedy, like in
even
Chicago
back
and stuff.
then.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
definitely back
Oh
then.
no, say it ain't so.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of, like major events, what do you think are some of the major events that stand out in your mind from last year? Now that we just rolled over to a new year, you look back and you reflect. What reflects in your mind?
Well, so I wear a couple of different hats at Automotive News. One is service and parts, which you guys know about. But I also oversee coverage of finance and insurance, and also used cars, wholesale. And so, for finance and insurance, it's just, the compliance and, the FTC rule, safeguards rule. Now we got the cars rule that just, the NADA went to court today. And although we're recording this early, went to court today and blocked that from being implemented. So in the F&I world, there's a lot of compliance, a lot of regulatory stuff that really kept dealerships on their toes, to kind of stay within all these rules, and hiring IT and, cybersecurity professionals to help them. And for, used cars, 2 years ago they were making money, printing money. Used cars were through the roof, and now they've really kind of fallen back to, more normal price range. And, so what does that mean for 2024? How are they going to, a lot of predictions are that used cars will continue to stay relatively low. And service and parts, I think it's a lot of the stuff that, probably in 2021 and 2022 we talked about. It's staffing, it's finding technicians. It's how do you, maybe roll in some digital tools for scheduling and things like that, and
Yep.
updating the customers. And so I think those, and service and parts, it seems like it's the same things that are just kind of, confounding them, really just, the service managers that can't really get a handle on. And then you kind of throw in EVs, and, EVs again are, they've kind of plateaued a little bit, but I think it was 8% last year of sales, 6%, 8% were EVs. So
Yeah, I've heard
they're
some.
coming. And then
Yeah.
how do you get your service department ready for those?
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories. So I start at I get up at 3:50 every morning, and I'm right here at 4:30 in the morning. I spend several hours in this place called Clubhouse. Are you familiar with it?
I am.
Yeah. So Modern Day Car Biz, David Long, and a
Mhm.
shout out, to what he does with all things fixed operations and all things used cars, etc. In some of these rooms, not David's rooms, but the other rooms I'm in, I hear the same stuff that I heard in 1985 when I started selling cars. It's the same challenges. Now, I do think this year versus last year, I want your input. There's been an uptick in conversations regarding what you just mentioned, EV, and also artificial intelligence versus the first part of 2023. Anyway, I mean, ChatGPT is a year and 2 months old, for heaven's
Right.
sake. So
Right.
do you hear that kind of stuff too, or?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of anticipation on how service departments are going to integrate AI into their processes. And I'm still a little skeptical, just because, like, as service department, the auto industry as a whole is kind of, they're kind of, sometimes they're set in their ways. And so anything newfangled stuff, right? You're laughing.
Yeah.
So I'm a little skeptical of how quickly this AI will take off. But I think, at CES, we'll see it a little bit. And I think at NADA, we'll see a lot of these new AI, based tools that will be offered to dealerships. And it's, I just don't see a quick adoption of them. Although I think they will be helpful in a lot of areas that they need help in.
Yeah, here's some of the things that I'm hearing, and a lot of people don't know, but there's two types of AI. There's automated intelligence, and then there's artificial intelligence. And fixed ops marketing is actually both. And most people don't know, but all the videos that we do is all artificial intelligence. It's all AI voiceover with different packs and stuff like that. We can put men or women, etc. And so I believe that technology to accelerate a process or system they have in place, the AI part of it, could probably work really well. But a lot of people are just getting it and signing up for the sake of signing up because they think it's going to solve their problem. And if they don't have a system or process in place, it's a cancellation waiting to happen. So what I'm hearing that 2024 is going to be is everybody's going to be signing up for AI and then canceling it within 3 months. It's just a cancellation waiting to happen because people have to realize there is a human side to the AI in order
Right.
to make it work. Thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think again, everybody wants, the latest and the greatest. And so you got to get this. You don't have this, well, you got to sign up for this. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Everyone's doing it. I got to do it too. And I'm guilty of all these things too. So I'm like, okay. But I think like there's some work that has to be done into it, and you have to learn about it. And people don't have time. Their time is short, and so if they got to invest time to learn how to do something, or and again, I think in the long run it would probably be beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think in our when we were chatting before, like the folks like Ed Roberts and the folks who kind of get it, the smart service departments will somehow find a way to do things that are gonna help them. And so there will be some who will adopt it, and they'll be on different podcasts and shows saying, well, I do it and it's great, and why aren't you all doing this? But I think for the run of the mill service departments who are overstressed and they don't have all the time, they'll be right. They'll sign up for it, and like the gym membership, and like my gym membership, I'll sign up in
Yeah.
January to lose some weight, and by April I'll be out. Screw this.
Yeah. I don't even think, I think most of it's by the end of January that they've given up on those, according to statistics anyway. Yeah. I'm not a resolution kind of guy. I'm resolute in what I'm doing day to day, but yeah, those resolutions, they never really work for me. I do hear, and Ed Rob, there's so much chatter about this. Another thing that there's vendors and there's vendor partners. I like to think we're vendor partners because we do have a lot of automation built into our technology. We understand that, or when I'm talking to somebody about our solution, that they're thinking, oh my gosh, half the usernames and passwords I don't even access. Or 3 months later, the controller's going, what is this $1,200 a month? Oh, that doesn't work. Let's cancel it. Well, it does, but it requires somebody at the dealership to do something, as to your point, on a daily or weekly basis to achieve the desired results, and they're not. We have our challenges with that too, even with the level of automation that we have in place. But these dealers sometimes are almost impossible to get a hold of and to participate in this partnership we have. I see a lot of that going on. But you know what? It's the same industry today with different technologies as it was in '85. I'm hearing the same stuff, even in service.
Yeah, and it's the same problem. How do you get customers to come back for visit after visit? It's like you said, it's the same as it was in 1985. We may have different tools and different processes and different approaches that are better, but still, give or take 70% of customers, once their warranty's over,
They're gone.
they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I stress as much as I possibly can, the most important thing in all these rooms and Zoom rooms and clubhouses I'm in, there's one common denominator, and we get bogged down by all this sideline stuff, and that is the client, the customer, the guest, whatever you want to call it. That is the number one goal, is to deliver for that. Because you're right, 7 out of 10, by the time they get to the end of the warranty period, they've defected. But they were doing that 20 years ago too, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's and my nativity in when I joined, I'm a 4-year anniversary, just like around kind of you guys are too, with at Automotive News. I grew up in Detroit, and so automotive is kind of in your blood. You just have to. It's kind of you're familiar with it and all, but when I started learning more about fixed ops, and I would meet people, and I would go to these different conferences and stuff, and I was like, this all seems very simple. It's like if you treat people right, then you'll make a killing. But then obviously it's not that simple, right? You got to throw in a bunch of factors of time and shortages of maybe technicians and parts and such, and then things become a little less easy. So, but too often I hear, well, find out how they want to be contacted. What they want to have text message or they want a phone call? I'm like, if they want a text message, text them. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty simple.
Wow,
But
what a revolution.
yeah,
Yeah, it's it's amazing. So, Sherry, you have a question? I mean,
Sure. Sure. So one of the questions I had on here for you, Dan, was, you're constantly going to events, meeting a lot of people. So, have you noticed a pattern of people who are attending these events, or what sort of events where people are finding success or networking in the industry? Have you noticed any kind of a pattern?
great
I
question.
think, I think, and I try and go to more. I'm trying to I'm not going to CES, but I'm like, I want to go to CES. That sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm like, why? Like, how do I, s- schmooze my way into like getting, because there's a bunch of, my colleagues going, but then I heard someone on a meeting today saying, oh my God, it's like, it's awful. It's like, it's NADA times 10 and it's, you're in lines and you're waiting for shuttle buses because it's spread all over, and it sounded kind of miserable. So I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to go to CES after all. Um, but yeah, I think the, I think like, I'll take NADA for example, is that, or digital dealer and things, people go, I think that there's a few speakers or there's a few things that they're interested in, but most of it is getting together with peers, not over a Zoom or on a phone call, but face to face and having a drink or whatever, and then just talking about the industry. And here's my challenges. What are your challenges? Well, how do you fix that? Or I think that's where I'm seeing more of, it's always this kind of back to the personal stuff. And I think, auto industry is it's a very close knit kind of community. And one of my reporters is kind of new, been automotive news like a little over a year now and new to automotive. And he's kind of like, always once in a while, I was like, why is it this way? Why is it that way? And I said, that's just the way automotive is. It's like, it's a community. And like, well, if they're upset about my story, why are they calling you or why are they calling Jamie and not me? And I said, because they know Jamie, they know me a little bit. And so that's how they do it. They know somebody, they're going to call and say, hey, we didn't like that story or that's it's the way things are kind of done. It's, it's more of a community kind of thing. So I think, I just, I think instead of having these speakers and panels and stuff, they all just kind of like a big party, just have everybody come and like just, shoot the shit with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the most beneficial thing. It's like, oh, this is better than having someone up there. But I just think that, I think there's always, a thirst for the latest information and hearing from others who you respect and in the field who, are telling you about here's how we overcame something. And so I think I just see more, there's just more of this kind of personal one-on-one type of that where it's, that's where the value is what I see.
Let me guess. At this very moment, another vendor is walking up to your lot with something shiny to sell. Before you head back and hide in your office, let me take a minute to tell you about my friend Dawn Pelham and my friends over at Global Dealer Solutions. They exist to help you find solutions to problems, some of which you might not even know you have. Best of all, they can manage as many products and services as needed for you, helping cut down on multiple vendor visits and distractions. And if you need anything, you have one number to call or text for the response all dealers like to hear. On it, GDS understands that successful dealerships require more than a set it and forget it mentality. And they'll be with you every step of the way, from setup, implementation, training, and support. And if necessary, they'll even cancel non-performing products for you. No pushback, no arguments, just a solutioneer executing course corrections as needed. Check out gdsdealers.com to learn the difference and set up a time to meet. Let's see if they're a good fit for you.
Yeah, the gathering. So we decided in the last minute not to do a booth this year. It's funny though, the first 2 years ago when we did our first booth after COVID, most of the people I haven't ever even met that work in our company, Charity being one. And I got to tell you, you might not find this hard to believe, but the marketing, the brand awareness, what Charity does. A lot of people, and I was telling Charity this yesterday. They're saying, "Oh, you did such a great job at promoting this and the marketing that, and your branding and awareness and stuff like that." I said, "That's not me. That's Charity. Okay, that's not me. That's Charity. I just show up. I mean, this woman is freaking amazing at what she does. And no, that's not an invitation to seek her out, try to hire her away, because it ain't happening. But she's been really instrumental, of tackling this and making sure that our branding and our awareness is always out there. And when we go to these events, I love them. I just love. My wife always comes with me because she's retired a couple of years after 32 years in the car business, so she gets it and understands it. Plus, she likes Vegas.
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff for her to do. And I think I heard that this potentially could be one of the largest NADAs ever. And I don't know if you've heard that or not.
I haven't, but I wouldn't surprise me. I think they've maybe finally finished all of the expansion at that convention center too. That gives all that
other
space.
hall?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they still like a mile apart, the two halls?
Gotta get your steps in while you're there.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, it is. We decided not to do that. It just didn't make sense from an ROI perspective. So the other thing I was mentioning earlier, which I'll back channel you later, but that was we think it's a tremendous networking event, not a pitch event, because when these people are walking through the venue there, it's just, I mean, you're hitting all directions.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
And so I think your approach is probably just spot on. It's like this, the people you want to talk to, may set up a meeting or stop by their booth or have a cocktail somewhere. And, I don't think you have to put up a little table with a little skirt on it and, hand out brochures and buttons and like little mints or whatever.
You said it. It is, this is a large industry. As long as I've been in it from all different sides, it's really very, very small. And when people know who you are and you do something really stupid or outlandish, word travels really, really fast. You could be blackballed in a day.
Yeah.
If something comes up that's just, I've seen companies destroyed for smoke and mirrors and other types of games that are played, and it's just, you got to be really careful, Dan.
Right. Yeah. If you're, it won't take long for people to catch on that you're not a straight shooter.
True.
Yeah.
Do you have specific plans for NADA?
No, but my dance card's filling up a little bit. It's kind of funny. I had one thing on the calendar. It's been on for like a few weeks. Someone's like, I'm like, okay. I'm like, from, Friday to Sunday, pick a time. And so she's like, I think she said, about 11 a.m. Saturday. I'm like, okay. And of course, that was like 3 weeks ago. I totally forgot about it. So someone reached out to me yesterday. Hey, let's get together. I've got like these two people I want you to meet. I'm okay. I'm like, name a time. I'm like, how about Saturday at 11 a.m.? So I had to look back. I'm like, I think I've got it. I'm like, that's the same exact time. I got one thing, like you nailed it right on that. So how about 11:30? Okay. So I'll do some F&I stuff and meet with some different folks in the F&I world and the service and parts. The first year I went was great because, again, I was kind of learning the whole service and parts industry, and NADA was kind enough to give me a badge where I could go into these breakout rooms, where they have all these kind of different presentations and just kind of listen and, learn about some of the topics. And they don't let me do that anymore. I haven't asked
really?
about, but no, you have to be, I think you have to be a dealership, or you have to be, they don't want media in there because they think, I'm going to run out and write a story that makes them look bad or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
So I'll just meet with a lot of different folks, cruise the floors, and just trying to find out what the trends are, what people are talking about, what seems to be the concerns, what are the challenges, what are some of the best practices out there, and just try and fill up a notebook so I can give them the assignments to my writers and have them write about these things.
I don't think you'll have any problem filling up your notebook whatsoever.
No.
I don't. Charity and I, last year, we were honored and blessed. We did 3 workshops at NADA. That is such an honor because that's kind of been one of those things I wanted to check off as long as I'm
Yeah.
in this industry, to be actually chosen to, out of all the people that submit. That was quite an honor. It was also very scary too,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
getting up on stage like that. But yeah, it
I
was.
think you're a
It was
phony. It's
fun.
like you got to make sure, if these people know the industry. You can't fake it up there with them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they knew I was a phony. That charity was the real thing.
Well, I wasn't going to say that out loud, but
Oh,
I
okay,
was
there we
thinking it.
go.
I was like,
Yeah.
let Charity do all the talking, please. Sorry.
Oh goodness. Goodness. Yeah, it was stressful. It was very stressful. But it was great. It was really a great experience. So Dan, I've heard some people say about 2023 that it was full of lots of good times and bad ones. And I wanted to ask you if you agree with that and why.
Well, I think I, you know, I will say, and this isn't, the kind of, truthfully, I think there aren't many bad times in the industry. Like, even COVID, this, and not to, get my pom poms out and be the cheerleader for dealerships and all, but they seem to always kind of figure out how to make things work. Whatever kind of hurdles at them. We got part shortages, we've got the COVID, whatever it might be. They they kind of overcome everything, and so I don't think they're, I'm sure maybe some dealerships didn't make as much money as they used to, or they did the year before, and maybe that's bad. But I think, I don't think of a lot of bad things, just because I think they kind of make it work, whatever the challenge is. So I think they, mostly were good times. Again, not, compared to previous years, maybe not, in sales or, all that kind of stuff, but I think it was still profitable for most people. I don't think anyone's dealers are flying coach to Las Vegas in a few weeks. I think, they'll be up in, at the very least, Comfort Plus and Delta or whatever, I'll be in the back, by the lavatory, but, yeah, no, I think, I would kind of say it was a lot more good than bad,
We're survivors.
looking from the outside. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the whole story, so I'll just summarize, but they're talking about if we had a nuclear holocaust here, car people are like roaches, man. They just come right back, and they'll build it all over again, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And we are. I mean, I've seen a lot of downturns, good times and bad times, and here we are. We're still kicking, still surviving, and moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. In my little short time in automotive, just the one thing that kind of sticks with me is that, oh my God, how are they going to, deal with this? And they do, and prosper in many ways. So I'm like, okay,
And these are the
they'll
most
figure it out.
amazing. These are the most amazing people that I've
Yeah.
ever met. I remember, I think it was to the Y2K time or no, it was maybe before. Anyway, there was a huge downturn with technology, and I'm from the Dallas area, and that technology corridor there is
Yeah.
like everybody just went bust. A lot of those salespeople, those corporations, got into the car business. And one thing that I saw is that, and it's not absolute, but people that came into that industry from those industries into the car business, they really didn't do that well. It's not like anything they thought selling cars. Now,
Yeah.
people in the automotive industry that do really well, they realize it's all relationships, it's all people. And I've seen a lot of people in our industry leave and excel in major ways in other industries where other industries can't excel in automotive. I don't know if that was the common denominator or not, but yeah, we don't give up. We just
Yeah.
don't give up.
Yeah. It's quite impressive. And, part of the reason I enjoy, working in automotive news and covering the industry is that there's just a lot of interesting, smart people who, again, overcome challenges,
Yeah.
time and again.
And they all got some stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It kind of makes you, oh, sorry, Russell, go ahead.
You go ahead.
It kind of makes you wonder with electric cars as, dealerships adapt and the people adapt, what that looks like later down the road. How the dealership is reframed, how the different positions within it are framed. Have you thought much about that, Dan?
No, I haven't. So a plug for Automotive News Retail Forum at NADA. Get your tickets now. I'm moderating a panel
Edit
on
that out,
EVs.
Patrick. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen here, Hill. Listen. So I've been thinking about it a lot because I've got to try and come up with some worthwhile questions to ask. And Ed Roberts is going to be on the panel. There's a gentleman from Kia. Oh, I think Rick Reckert from Reckert Automotive in Columbus is going to be on the panel. Um, yeah, I think it's, I don't think it's going to be as quick as originally thought when this whole transformation takes place. But it might, in the next 10 years, yeah, it might look like a hell of a lot different than it does now. And probably being done with fewer people but for technicians more highly skilled, and you've all heard it. And okay, well, you're not coming in for oil changes now. How are you going to make when they come back? How are you going to make money off them? And it's tires and it's windshield wipers and things like that. But also there's an opportunity there because I don't think you're taking your EV to Pep Boys or the wrench turner down the street. And so there's an opportunity there again for dealerships to kind of retain customers but they got to work at it. They can't just assume, well, they're gonna come here. They've got to come here. Well, customers will find a place to fix their EV, if it's going to be more convenient and cheaper than the dealership. So it's not a slam dunk, but it's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, I think it's a way to take back some of the stuff that we've sent packing down the road to the independents. We have an opportunity for another first impression, because those people that are coming in to service EVs, you're right, they're not going anywhere except the franchise dealer initially, but they also have a couple of ICE vehicles too. So
Yep.
maybe there's another opportunity to re-engage those customers that you could potentially help out with retention. Tires is the new oil change for EVs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and dealerships, I think, kick themselves because they kind of ignored tires because they were, low margin and they were a hassle to store and all that kind of, and now there's a whole industry of discount tires. And in my, the Michigan area, Bell Tire. And even I've been at dealerships before, and like I had a GMC, Yukon, and I had to get tires, and the guys, at the dealership said, let's just go to Bell Tire. They've got they'll be able to get it quicker than I can get it. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if your owner heard you say that, he might, fire you on the spot. But
I think Charity the other day, it came from Charity. The number one organic is Discount Tires. They own it nationally. Is that right, Charity? Did you say so? I heard that. I heard that somewhere. When you're searching for tires, Discount Tire comes up.
No, that didn't come from me,
okay.
But I believe it.
Makes sense.
I believe it.
Well, I mean, they have 1,600 franchises, and I know there's a lot of defection points in service that causes this retention problem. And one of them that I talk about a lot is tires. And they are low margin. And yes, you can compete with them. You can buy them for the same price. The thing is, that's the single largest purchase they're going to make while they're coming to you during the warranty period. If you get them on tires, the statistics I heard are 67% of those people will continue to not only do service with you, but they'll buy another newer pre-owned vehicle from you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, they're going to buy them from somewhere because they need them.
So I'll tell you a quick EV story. So we're fortunate enough to get vehicles, press vehicles from manufacturers. We'll kind of send them around for judging for car of the year, truck of the year. I just picked up a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid.
I'll be darned.
Over Thanksgiving break, I had a Genesis EV 70 electric, and was up for car of the year, and just gorgeous car. Genesis they're just beautiful cars, luxurious.
I have one. I got a G80.
Yeah, they're just I just love them. And so I don't have a charger at my house because I don't have an EV, but my sister's husband does. He's got a Lyric, and so I was taking my kids back up to school, back up to college on Sunday, and so I went to my sister's house and plugged in overnight. So I had a full charge, 244 miles, and round trip for to drop my kids off is about 180 miles.
Uh-oh.
I'd made that trip before in a Mercedes, and I was like, mile for mile it worked out. I'm like, okay, I'll be okay. I'll be close, but I'll be okay. So of course, I'm driving along, and my knucklehead son's 19 years old. It's like 32 degrees out. It's snowing outside. He's got shorts on and a t-shirt, and so he's like turning the heat up. I'm freezing here. I'm
Oh.
like, so like the battery starts, the range starts going down, by twos. I'm like, oh my God. But so I'm, and I wasn't thinking, because I'm like, didn't have a coat. I just like had slippers on, and I figured I'm just going to give him a hug and push him out the door and say, go to class and study. And, all that. So I get up there, I drop him off, and I'm like, I'm not going to make it back to home on this charge. And so they had a bunch of charging stations on campus, and they were free. And I'm like, okay, great. And I was mad because if I had dressed a little bit better, I would have just walked to the bar for, watched Sunday Night Football and waited a couple hours for this car to charge. So I, waited, sat in this parking lot for 2 hours while this
Oh no.
Genesis got enough that I felt comfortable that I'm going to make it all the way home. But I turn on the seat heater, but I don't turn on the heat in the car because I don't want to risk it again. And I swear by the time I had frostbite by the time I got home, 'cause I was freezing. I'm like, I'm like, oh my God. So now I see what people talk about range anxiety and, how, EVs are a little bit different in, California or Florida than they might be in Michigan in the winter. I mean, I still love the car and, but it was just not, 100% practical for that need on, going back up there, drop my kids off that day.
Yeah.
True. I was at one of during one of my presentations, probably when Cherry and I were doing it, talking about a journalist from Norway. I think it was Norway, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, wrote an article that it's like the population is 38% EV, something like that. It's astronomically high. Yeah. And he was saying that it's just so expensive. It was almost $1 a kilowatt hour to charge an EV. Well, that's about $100 to fully charge a Tesla in the United States. And
that was before we went through the inflation, this massive inflation. So I bet it's closer to today.
I'm just thinking, okay, well, that's more expensive than gasoline. And you factor that with, look, I'm not down. I don't have one. I would love to drive one, but there's some places I go. I mean, I'm in Texas, and you know how Texas is, right? I mean, it's just wide open.
All right.
And even though it has a range of 387 miles, is that what during optimal 60-degree temperature, or is that in extreme heats or extreme colds, or driving normal? I drive very fast. I mean, those are all variables that, or if you have one of those lightning trucks. I heard horror stories about having a load and it doesn't even get half of the mileage that, anyway, it's just.
Yeah. Not quite there yet, but I've driven several of them and I love them. I mean, I think they're a lot of fun. They're quick.
How quick, Dan? Are you telling us that you,
Well, I had the Mach-E GT for a while, and I scared myself a few times by,
wow,
it really snaps your head back and when you accelerate.
How long did you have it?
I think I had about 4 or 5 days.
And were there's any tread left on the tires?
not as much as when I picked it up.
I'm sure. There's the new tire oil change thing right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I know you got to get out in about 5 minutes, Dan.
Oh my gosh, we're already there.
Yeah. So I'll throw you one more question before we end. So what are some of your goals for 2024?
Well, I think, just we want to be smart and educational with our coverage. We want to talk to the people who are doing things the right way, who are doing innovative things, creative things. We want to be able to kind of educate readers to say, here's this person at this dealership, service department. They had this problem. Here's how they fixed it. They don't have enough technicians. Here's a program that they started to get kids out of high school to come, be technicians. And so, it always is, trying to find those great stories that are going to be informative for readers, and have a good voice to them. And also the good, feature stories about, people doing good things in this industry. I'm a sucker for those kind of good feature stories,
Mhm.
but just trying to be informative, delight, and educate our readers is, as much as we can. Because, I think, automotive news is looked at as, kind of this, kind of the Bible of the automotive industry. And, so we want to continue to be smart and look smart, every day. So, that's my goal. It's everyone's goal here is to kind of continue to inform, readers with, the latest news in the industry.
Well, unlike other publications, I think the way people embrace and think about automotive news is neutral and non-biased and extremely informative and accurate I think I've always viewed it that way.
Right. Yeah. We don't have any skin in the game. We're just there to kind of report what's going on, and through the right lens, and get the complete story to everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of very giving people, one of which has been the recipient here recently, who's a very good friend of ours as well, is Sean Butler.
Yeah.
Man, that guy has just gone through some and still is. But he's become a friend. I mean, we've met in person. We were at a function together, and he's been on our show many times and on our FixedOPS Institute as well. And he's just the attitude that he has right now is just phenomenal. Shout out to you, Sean. Prayers, peace, and blessings, brother. We're all here
Absolutely.
to support you.
So that's one of his stories, one of those ones that I really like that we've done. And it was, I was listening on a show, the Sunday Drive Live, or
Yeah, SDLs.
yeah. And I heard he was talking, I heard people kind of referencing Sean and this kind of uphill battle that he's going to face. That he's going to this new dealership and they're underperforming, and people, best of luck to you there. And it kind of like, once in a while the light bulb goes off, and I was like, that would be an interesting story. Here's a guy going in. What's the first thing he does when he's going to try and turn this place around? What's the second thing? What's the 100th thing that he does? And then kind of like document. So we did, one of my writers wrote a great story about, we had a whole spiral notebook of like, from everything to changing the light bulbs to, more
And he
important
did
things.
it. And he actually did it.
Yeah. And he would send me like, text, here's a picture from, we're doing a steak cookout on Friday for lunch because we hit our numbers and stuff. And yeah. And those are the kind of stories, right? You're like, here's someone going and trying to turn a underperforming service department around, and here's how he went about it. And here's how he, connected with the current staff, and here's, the new things he put in place. And I just think those stories like that are valuable, and readers like that. And so
people eat that up right there.
So we really enjoyed bringing that to him, and I need to find more Sean Butlers out there and write about them as well.
Yeah.
Well, if we hear about any of them, which we do, we'll mention it to you. And if it's something you're interested in, reach out to him, because we come across stories like that all the time.
All right.
And especially on the SDL and the other places. That's an amazing gathering of people. I don't know if you've been on there in a while, but it's
been a while. Usually if I'm up that early on Sunday, it's because I'm out walking the dogs around making pancakes for my kids. So I'm like,
there you go.
But I need to make it more of a Sunday habit.
Yeah, we didn't get to all the questions. Everybody, Dan Shine, Automotive News. We're humbled, honored. We thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, when that Monday it releases, you like him, you love him, you share, you repost, you do whatever, reach out to him, because he's got his pulse on the industry. And all of us, that's what we want to know. We want to know what's going on in the industry, and there's no better place to get it from Dan Shine and Automotive News. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys soon in Vegas.
Yeah.